A nationwide movement protesting the actions of President Donald Trump makes a stop in Raleigh.
Yeah, organizers are calling for 50 states, 50 protests against Project 2025.
So right now I want to take you to the video from King and Story Roads of that big group that's on its way here right now. People started gathering at that spot in East San Jose around 2:30 this afternoon, and they started their march here to City Hall at around 4:15. It's going to be a little more than a 3-mile march by foot. We're expecting them anytime now, and this was put together by a coalition of labor and immigrant rights groups.
A nationwide movement protesting the actions of President Donald Trump made a stop in Raleigh. Organizers are calling for 50 states, 50 protests against Project 2025, a controversial initiative believed to threaten worker protections and public services across the U.S. Right now, we're bringing you live video from King and Story Road, where a massive group is on its way to City Hall. People began gathering at East San Jose around 2:30 this afternoon, and the march started at 4:15. This 3-mile march, organized by a coalition of labor unions, immigrant rights groups, and grassroots movements, is a powerful display of opposition. The protesters demand not just policy change, but a system that prioritizes fairness over profits. More people need to be out in the streets. People don't fully understand what's happening right now. Our Constitution is being undermined, and it's time to reclaim our rights. What kind of power? People power. Who's got the power? We've got the power. This march and the movement behind it aren't isolated incidents. They represent years of frustration from rising costs, job insecurity, and deepening inequality. Under President Trump's second term, many believe the divide between America's elites and working-class families has become insurmountable, and now people refuse to stay silent. The streets are filled with chants calling for action, and the message is clear. We demand change now. If you're feeling this frustration, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and leave a comment below telling us how you're getting involved in your community. Together, we can make a change. I believe Trump is trying to tear this country down, one protester says. The only explanation for his actions is that he's working for Putin. The things he's doing are not about improving America. He's destroying our infrastructure, our government, and our economy. We're now a pariah on the global stage. The protests are not just about one issue. They're about a long-simmering sense of injustice. Organized by labor unions, immigrant rights groups, and movements like the fast-growing 5051 initiative, the protests were ignited by what demonstrators call a brutal dismantling of worker protections and public systems. What's happening now, they argue, is the dismantling of the democratic values that America stands for. The idea that government should serve the people, not the interests of billionaires. For many, the turning point came with the controversial executive orders Trump signed in his second term, which many saw as an attack on unions, healthcare, education, and workers' rights. Protesters say Trump's administration, bolstered by billionaires like Elon Musk, has put profit over people, power over fairness. They argue that the American system is rigged to benefit the wealthy, and it's time for a change. If we elect candidates who work for us, not the billionaires, there's nothing we can't accomplish, said one speaker, rallying the crowd. This isn't governance. This is exploitation dressed in a suit. Anger exploded after the creation of the Department of Government Efficiency, a Trump-Musk-backed initiative accused of slashing federal jobs, outsourcing services, and attacking unions. The consequences are clear. Schools are underfunded, public hospitals are strained, and vital safety nets like Medicaid are hanging by a thread. What started as a series of small protests over wage disparities has grown into a full-blown movement against the systemic issues facing working Americans. The key demand from these protests is not only the reversal of Trump's policies, but the implementation of new, progressive policies that prioritize human rights, job security, and fair wages. These protesters believe that the government should work to ensure that everyone has access to a good job, decent health care, and a quality education. Values they believe are being systematically stripped away under the current administration. The frustration didn't stop at policy. In cities like New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles, demonstrators have demanded an end to harsh deportations, a stop to the erosion of workers' rights, and a government that serves all Americans, not just the wealthy elite. Many protesters carried signs connecting their cause to global struggles for justice, for Palestinian rights, gender equality, and climate action. "We stand with all oppressed people around the world," said another protester, referring to solidarity movements abroad. From Berlin to São Paulo, people are rising up against the same forces that are pushing Trump's dangerous policies. This movement isn't just a reaction to Trump's domestic policies, it's a response to a global shift in power. People are recognizing that the actions of one leader can have far-reaching effects across the world. As Trump's foreign policy became more aggressive and isolationist, it spurred protests not only in America, but in countries that were directly impacted by his actions, like Mexico, the UK, and Germany. These protests have become part of a broader global resistance movement, with people everywhere standing up against authoritarianism and economic inequality. International solidarity has become a cornerstone of this movement. Trump's economic policies, especially his sweeping tariffs, have reverberated worldwide, causing job losses and slowing production across industries. In Berlin, Manila, and São Paulo, protests erupted in response to these moves, which many critics see as destabilizing on a global scale. "We will not be silenced," the protesters chant, showing their commitment to standing up against the policies they believe are tearing apart their communities and the world order. They argue that Trump's policies are not just harming America's working class, but also threatening global stability. Economists warn that the tariffs imposed by Trump on imports from China, Europe, and other key partners will lead to higher costs for American consumers and disrupt critical supply chains. The U.S. is highly dependent on imported goods, and the imposition of tariffs has caused a ripple effect throughout the economy, leading to rising prices on everyday goods like electronics, appliances, and clothing. In many cases, American businesses are being forced to cut jobs or raise prices to offset these added costs. The tariffs introduced by the Trump administration are among the most aggressive tax hikes on the middle class in recent history. The average American household will now pay an additional $2,100 per year due to these tariffs. Last year, the U.S. imported $439 billion worth of goods from China, and now those goods face massive levies. Consumer electronics like smartphones, laptops, and tablets are expected to see sharp price hikes. Everyday necessities, from shoes to toys, will become more expensive, with toys alone predicted to increase by 30% by the end of summer, just in time for back-to-school shopping. Even industries that rely on imported goods are feeling the strain. Appliances, medical devices, and cars are all projected to rise in price. The U.S. relies heavily on Taiwan for semiconductors, and rising tariffs on these critical imports could lead to higher costs across various sectors. Many industry leaders are warning that the American supply chain isn't equipped to handle these higher costs. Shifting production back to the U.S. won't necessarily lower prices due to higher domestic manufacturing costs. In essence, the tariffs are hitting Americans where it hurts most, in their wallets. This has led to widespread public concern, particularly among families and individuals already struggling to make ends meet. As goods become more expensive, It creates further strain on an economy that's already dealing with issues like unemployment and wage stagnation. And as the protests grow, so does the tension. Major intersections have been shut down, and federal buildings have been surrounded. The situation is escalating, and the administration's silence only seems to be making it worse. But the protests aren't just about tariffs or specific policies. They're about a reckoning, a demand for accountability. Protesters are calling for the reversal of harsh deportations, the restoration of unions, and the revival of critical social programs. They want a government that invests in public education, universal health care, and ensures that working families are treated with dignity, not discarded for the profit of a few. It's time for action. Hit that subscribe button, share this video with your community, and join the movement. Let's make sure our voices are heard. Our future depends on it.